Hello and welcome to Make It Work, the bi-weekly podcast where we uncover inspiring stories of modern working mamas in Asia who have redefined their career paths whilst putting family first.
Welcome back to Make It Work Asia. I'm your host, Sarah Wong. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce our guest, Rachel Tan, an e-commerce whiz based in Malaysia who's made waves in leadership positions at the likes of Shopee, L'Oreal, Nafnang, and Oxwhite, the Malaysian retail company famous for selling 2,500 white shirts in just 3 hours. She is also the founder of In Real Life, a digital publishing platform which she sold in 2020. But that's not all. Rachel's story takes a unique turn after welcoming 3 children into her life. She realized the potential to merge her love for nurturing kids with her marketing prowess, leading to the birth of the Nurts, an innovative venture that offers books, toys, and games designed to foster precious parent-child bond. For those intrigued by the concept of fractional work, Rachel shares her journey of securing a 2-day-a-week marketing and leadership role in Oxwhite while spearheading growth initiatives with her own team at the Nurts.
Rachel is also extending a special offer to listeners of Make It Work for products purchased on the Nurts online store. For a limited time only, use the code MakeItWork10 for a 10% discount. Terms and conditions apply.
Now let's dive into our conversation with Rachel Tan. Hi Rachel, how are you?
Hello, hi guys. We're excited to be on the podcast.
I'm so glad to have you after you had to battle COVID and conflicting schedules. I'm so glad that we can finally have you on the podcast. So without further ado, Rachel, please tell us your story in 2 minutes or less.
Hi, my name is Rachel. I'm currently the founder of the Nurts. Nurts stand for Nurturer. We are a play-based learning platform that curates tools to encourage learning and bonding for families and children. Before this, I was a marketer. I am still a marketer for my own brand, I guess. And I spent the last 15 years driving growth for a lot of companies from 0 to 1. Like Nafnang, and of course leading marketing for Shopee when it launched in Malaysia from 2016 to 2020, as well as working alongside the founder for Oxwhite and local D2C. And then lastly, before I jumped out to start the Nurts, I was the head of e-commerce and digital for covering brands like Kiehl's and Icom YSL. I'm a mom of 3 and they're all below 5 years old, with my youngest being 10 months old. And I love the beach, I love sunshine. A fun fact about me is that I spent a lot of time in the circuits when I was young as a kid. So I really do love all things creative, artsy, music.
Oh, wow. That actually gives quite a bit of context, Rachel, about why
Really?
and how you ended up doing marketing. Before we dive into your story, can you give us a flavor of what a day in your life looks like?
So a lot of my day is spent with my kids, which I really love. Waking up, breastfeeding my youngest baby, and then juggling meetings, juggling reports, and then of course picking up the kids from school, driving them to school back and forth. Then of course occasionally I like to spend some time with myself, doing what I enjoy, like swimming or just taking a stroll in the park to just unwind a little bit or maybe get a massage. Once a week, I try. But yeah, that's pretty much like a day. And it varies, to be honest, every month, because every month is never the same. Being in a growth stage, right, company, we're always launching new products or partnering with new puppies. So every day is pretty much a surprise in store, although you have your plan, but somehow things will just pop up, right? And then we try to go with the flow.
It sounds very varied. And I imagine as a business owner, you kind of have control over your day, but at the same time, there's a lot that you have to react to.
Yes. I guess to me, it takes a lot of learning as well. And then I like the flexibility in a way because I'm working for myself. So it takes a lot of self-discipline, I guess, as well. Right. Unlike working 9 to 6 at a corporate company, it's very different because the day is pretty much fixed and you're at the office, for example.
Just a quick one about your kids. Are they in school? What is their childcare arrangement like?
So my kids, all 3, have never got to a daycare. So they're all at home all the way. My eldest is 4.5 years old now. So she's in preschool and she loves school. She loves spending time with her friends, teachers. And then my son, who is 3 years old, he just started nursery. So he goes to the same preschool as my daughter. So that's been quite, I would say, helpful as well, because at home I can spend a bit more time on working, at least the first half of the day. Then pick them up from school, and then they have some after school activities like swimming. So they're learning how to swim at a young age. My youngest is about 10 months old now. She is still at home. And thankfully, I've got a helper that helps take care of her. On top of that, I, of course, personally take care of her a lot. Yeah, so I guess that's the current arrangement. It varies from child to child, to be honest. Like when I had my first daughter, I was full-time at Shopee. So I was always in the office and then work late, long hours. So I had to rely a lot on my in-laws as well. very supportive. So then we had to drop her off at my in-laws' house because after work, every day is like that. So a lot of the weekdays are spent, working, and then night on weekends, that's when we really have some family time. And then with my second son, it's different because it's COVID, right? MCO. So we're all working from home, and I'm learning how to juggle working from home and taking care of my toddlers and a baby, and then pregnant with my youngest. so that's a different challenge, I guess. But it also taught me how to, become stronger as well mentally, and how to juggle the day to day. And then now with open market, and then the two kids in school, and then I've got my youngest, I guess it's not as tough as it was with the first time round. Now that I've got experience with two kids, and having the third one is like, okay, I know what to do. It's not that bad and not that hard to manage, and it doesn't take as much of a toll that it did on me lah, as with the first experience. Yeah.
Okay, so much so that you were confident to even start your business, which is arguably like a fourth baby, just before your last child, right?
That's hard. Yeah, I actually started Nurts. I started last year in July, and starting it meaning like I literally wrote the business plan, work on the first product, etc. We haven't even launched our website. And we only launched our website 2023 in January. And this was when my son was about 2 years old. And then I was pregnant with my third kid. And then when I launched the website, that was like maybe T-3 weeks to the delivery of my third kid. So I think, yes, definitely for baby together with my third baby and my second toddler, right? But I guess there's no better time to do it because, if I sit down and it's just never the right time. So now that I had a lot more time not working in a full-time, 9 to 6, right? Or 9 to 9 rather, I can now focus on building this while I was still pregnant. And then I guess I had to plan also, right, for when I delivered my kid. And then in confinement, there's a downtime of at least 1 to 2 months. So how do I make sure that we're still growing and things are, running as planned? And I guess it's a lot easier to manage because I'm a one-man show. When I started, it's just me doing everything from operations to marketing to sales to product. So I had to plan everything, and I'm glad because then I had my product launched already by January. And then when I was in confinement, it was just rolling. And then when I'm up and about again, because I had my third CSET in like 5 years. So I guess it helps me also with the prior experience. So then I guess I had a plan to continue growing the business and the day-to-day as well. But I'm happy now because like since July now, I've got 3 other colleagues in my team.
Wow, that's really exciting that, yeah, you've grown enough to actually hire and delegate and really expand. So take us back a little bit, to the early days of being a mom. Tell us about how that shift happened in you towards your work and family life.
I would say I'm a very strong career woman.
I think we can see that.
For the past 15 years, so I've always been in, startups, leading growth. And then for my first company in Afternoon until the last corporate job that I had, it's always been in a growth role. And so I think when I got pregnant with my first kid, I was still in Shopee back then. And life was very different back then because I practically worked day and night. And after having a kid, your priorities in life change a little bit, right? Not a little bit, a lot. Your priorities.
I was going to say.
Yeah. And it made me a lot more self-aware, in terms of my time management, in terms of, where my attention is spent on. And being a new mom, there's a lot to learn. Like breastfeeding is new to me. Not having enough sleep, waking up every 2 hours, like all that was very new to me. And I was trying to juggle having a career and being a new mom. So that was very, very tough, to be honest. Like I will be in meetings and then I'll be like, oh my gosh, I need to confirm within meetings. And I'm like with my MD, and I'm like, okay, like, and so there are a lot of this kind of situation. And when I was working in Shopee, for example, I was one of the first mom in the management team. Now everyone was single or either just married, no kids. So it was hard because I was probably one of the only mom. And so all that really helped shape my perception on, what actually matters to me. And my daughter was 1 year old when I realized, hey, I actually don't spend a lot of time with her. And she's never going to be that size ever again. And that hit me because every time I came home, she would be sleeping. And then when she got up, I had to rush to work. And it was like that every day for the past 9 months, 10 months, and then I realized that, hey, I cannot do that anymore. And so when I was pregnant with my second kid, I realized that things have to change. I mean, work is always going to be there. And I realized that I had to change. So priorities changed, definitely. It made me a lot more self-aware. And I realized that the work that I do, the motivation that I have behind what I do also changed slowly. When I left Shopee, it was a very tough decision because I really love what I did. I really love Shopee. And I think being a mom then taught me about, okay, like there are other things in life, in a sense that I had to find flexibility, or I had to really decide what I really wanted. Do I want to be a very involved parent? Or do I just want to be a mom that's focusing on my job and then, sending my kids to daycare? I didn't want that, right? So I was super hands-on. And then that's when I left. And then I found my role working for Oxford. We'll get to that. Yeah, so then I realized that to me, flexibility at that point of time in my life was very important because I wanted to spend time with my kids, but I didn't want to only be a full-time housewife, right? I still wanted to function and I still wanted to give back and add value to companies. So there was that struggle in a sense where I'm like at the peak of my career. And then at the same time, I'm also a new mom, and so that was probably one of the toughest decisions I had to make. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
I'm very glad that I found Oxwhite as well. And CK, I was the founder of Oxwhite, where I managed to still feel like relevant in a way, where I could still help grow a company and I still could add value to other people while taking care of my family.
Could you give a one-liner about what Oxwhite is, listeners who are not familiar with the brand?
Yeah, sure. So Oxwhite is a lifestyle brand. Started off with a white shirt, and then they expanded into lifestyle products like crew neck tees, innerwear, towels, home and living items. Yeah, so that's Oxwhite in a nutshell. They were very successful because they started from purely social media, and that's how the Oxwhite story came about. And I was a very huge fan of their story. I'm like, wow, so amazing! This brand who grew from nothing to suddenly became like the biggest brand in the country. And I really wanted to learn more, and that's how I got to know CK at an event, and then the rest is history, I guess.
Okay, take us back to that moment, right, when you went to that event. What happened and how did you land in the role, which I think eventually was something like you were a 2-day-a-week CM,
Yeah.
something like that? Tell
Yeah.
us.
So to be honest, like it wasn't planned. When I left Shopee, I took a step back and then just wanted to chill for a while. Because at the point I also sold my first company. So when I was in Shopee, I also ran a publishing platform called In Real Life. And then that was my first company and I sold it to World of Us and Influasia. And then that was when I took a break in a way and then say, okay, let's go and focus on personal growth. And that's when I went for a boot camp on personal growth. And that's where I met CK because he was one of the speakers. And then he was like a celebrity that, everyone was crowding him. And I'm like, okay, I'm never going to get a chance to talk to him. So I think somehow we managed to exchange name cards. And then we just got to talking and then we became friends in a way, acquaintance. We started talking, started catching up, having coffee, chats. And then at that point of time, I was not working, right? And I was quite flexible in a sense where I'm like, okay, maybe I should try consulting brands. And I did a lot of freelance consulting. And that's when he said, hey, why don't you consult my brand? And I said, oh, okay. I knew I wanted more flexibility, right? So I didn't want to go back into working 5 days a week or 9 to 5. So then he said, hey, then why don't you tell me what works? And I said, okay, maybe I could do 2 days a week. And then remaining 3 days, I would spend time with my kids. And I knew that was quite a challenging ask because that's not common. That's not common. And I guess at that point of time, I had nothing to lose. Right? To me, it was, okay, if this works out, great. If it doesn't work out, then it's okay. I tried, right? And so he was very open. So CK was very open and he was very supportive. And he said, let's give it a try. And I think ultimately it was very much output driven, right? Like it's not about how many days you work, but rather how can you help my brand grow, right? And then Oxford at that point of time was already very big, like they were in their second year and they had a community of 80,000 members, I think, or customers already. And so when I came in, it was about, okay, how do we grow further? Because we're already at this point of time. And so then I decided to work 2 days a week and it worked out for them as well, right? Being a startup, of course, they can't afford to hire me full time. So that it was a win-win situation and I worked 2 days a week. I hired a team. I had my own team in Oxford as well. My role there was literally like a head of business or to just work alongside the founder to grow the brand further, whether it's products or new channels or marketing channels. So my role was really to look into where the gaps, where the opportunities, and then, getting them to grow, creating the SOP, creating the team, hiring the team, training the team, helping them venture into areas that they were not there yet. So I will catch up with my team like Mondays and Tuesdays where I'm like, okay, guys, I'm only in Monday and Tuesdays. So we will do our WIPs and catch ups on Mondays or Tuesdays. And then for the rest of the week is about them executing, right? So we will align our goals. And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is when they will execute the campaigns, projections, reporting, everything. And then I would catch a break in the following Monday. So it worked out really well, surprisingly. And it showed me that a lot of the things that we do is very output driven, right? As long as you can still drive growth, drive progress, drive results. It doesn't really matter how much time you spend in the office, and so I did that and we grew from 80,000 customers to 300,000 customers in a year. All right. Yeah. New stores on Shopee, on Lazada, and then we went in live streaming. We had partnerships, we had a lot of PR, coverage, all that. So all that was within 12 months or less. And the team grew from, I think there were about 2 people, then it grew to about 5 to 6 people. And then I started training, so to make sure that they can actually operate without me. Because of course I'm there to help them, but I'm not there permanently in that sense, right? So that worked out really well. And so I spent about 1 year in Oxford. And I left also because there was a opportunity with L'Oreal. And I thought, okay, let's try that. That's new to me as well. And that's why I left. And L'Oreal was a full-time gig, it was 5 days a week. And my kid was a bit older already. My son was about 1, 2 years old. So then I thought, okay, I can go back into working again full-time. I'm very grateful because during that downtime that I had, I could still add value. I could add a soft story to my resume in that sense that, hey, I helped grow the brand. And it didn't feel, to be honest, it didn't feel like a part-time gig. It felt like I was there all the time. But I guess the challenge there was really about balancing your time. If you're really working 2 days a week, then you've got to shut on and shut off. And then your teammates have to be understanding as well as your boss. Yeah, and I really had that support. I would say I really enjoyed working out. So CK was very, very supportive. And then the team was very understanding and very supportive as well.
Wow, this is really very inspiring, very interesting, Rachel. A lot of food for thought there about just this new model that you are talking about of fractional leadership role, right? Because you were so experienced in your time in Shopee and even in your own media publishing company that you sold, you went on to take a leadership role in a fast-growing startup, but at a fraction because you know how to do like, the basics of setting up like marketing and business expansion. And you know that you could do it within 2 days. And you found actually someone who is willing to support such a model. So yeah, that's really, I think, very interesting and challenging, especially as I talk to a lot of mom friends who are thinking about doing something of a flex role or people who kind of want to try something different or do fractional work. Here, your experience is really very, very encouraging as well. Is there any kind of advice you would have for people who are exploring such flexible fractional roles?
Yeah, I think my advice would be then you got to know your worth, number one, right? Because time is everything, as a mom, as an entrepreneur, even as a full-time career woman, right? I think time is everything. You've got to know your value. And then don't be afraid to negotiate, right? I think ultimately, a lot of people are very afraid of like, what if they don't agree or what if they don't this or they don't that, right? So to me, it's, you don't try, you never know. So I guess from the perception and the perspective of things is that, do it if you're already thinking it, right? Just try it. What's the worst that can happen, right? So for me, it's don't be afraid to try something new. Even if you doubt yourself or even if you think that that's something that no one has ever thought before, or I think if you have that idea, just try it, right? And I always ask myself, what's the worst that can happen? And then my answer back there in my head is just, okay, the worst that can happen is just go back and look for another job. and I wasn't afraid of that. To me, it's like, okay, I know that that's the worst that can happen. Then go and try. So then I wasn't afraid anymore.
Words of wisdom. And so it sounds, Rachel, that you have this bug, which I guess in my terms, I call it like itchy backside. You like to start new things. You have this bug in you that needs to, go to a place where things are just starting out to make it create something from there. You did it in Shopee as marketing leader, and then you were in Oxford. You did your own company at the same time, and then now the Nurts, right? With in all kind of different spaces. I don't know, same but different maybe. Yeah, tell us like how do you manage that drive of being a mom to young kids? And I'm sure you even have more ideas for the future, right? Like how do you rein it in?
So in a household, I believe that there are 3 relationships, right? There's a relationship with yourself about what you want, what you really want as a person. 2, there's a relationship with your kids. And then to my kids, what kind of relationship do I want with them? Then there's a relationship with my spouse as well. As partners, what do we want for each other, etc. Right? So knowing that, right, what the drive that I have then is a lot about the relationship with myself. Right? I'm not doing it for my kids only or for my partner, but for myself because I know myself best. Okay. And like you say, right, I think I'm a type of person that I get bored very easily. And meaning not in a bad way, but in a good way where, if I'm in a company and, everything's just going flat as usual, there's no growth, I feel like something is not right. Like I've got to drive something or come up with new initiatives or try something else or A/B test something. And I think that's the kind of mindset that I'm kind of built to have working in tech startup from a young age. Yeah, and so that has taught me a lot about being agile and not be contented in a sense where it keeps you going and means that there will always be growth, right? Versus complacency. So that to me, I guess complacency is something that I'm not comfortable with. Where not to say not contented, but complacency in the sense where you're just, going with the flow. Some people are okay with that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, in my personality wise, I guess saying that growth helps motivate me in that sense. Chicken and egg. So like if there's no growth, it doesn't really motivate me as much, right? But when there's growth, whether it's growth from a company perspective or whether it's from a even team members perspective, right? For example, in Shopee, I would have hired like say an intern, and then from the intern she grew to become an associate, and then she started having her own team, became a manager, and seeing that grow people in the team also helps motivate, and that really drives me. How do I manage that with being a mom to young kids? I think to me that's very separate. One is for me as a person, I feel that having that drive is very important to keep me sane, to make me feel relevant still, that I can still add value to society or even to companies. And it's not like I had in my intention from day one to, oh, I must grow a company, I must keep building. Not necessarily. But rather, if I feel like there's an opportunity and it's untapped, then I would be thinking about it. And if I think about it and no one is doing it, then I'm like, okay, no, why don't I do it? And I have that experience. I guess having that experience working in multiple startups, successful startups, then you become less afraid trying in a sense, right? Because I was quite fortunate to be working in different industry and different companies that had the resources and did really well. So for me, it's always, okay, if there's an opportunity, why not try it? And it works, great. And if it doesn't work, then that's okay, right? You've tried it and just move on, right? And try something else. So that mindset of the failure, right? Failure is part of success, I guess. That's kind of ingrained in me. So that keeps me going. And then as a mom, of course, what I do like today, running Nurts, a lot of it is inspired by my kids. So I started Nurts. I just had a product idea of creating a card game based on my parenting experience. And then we put it on Kickstarter. Then I created my own Shopify website. And then from there, we just started getting traction. And then I created more and more tools based on my personal parenting experience. Then I realized that people could read what I was going through. And then because the card game for parenting and then the book for kids, it was very niche. And so I did struggle a little bit, think about, okay, how do I position the brand on the platform? And what do I want for Nurts? And a lot of it came from me being a parent of young kids. And then I realized that, hey, there's actually a lot of gaps in finding things that I want to do with my kids. For example, our first book that I published was inspired by my daughter, where we read her a lot of book every night, right? And then we realized that she would ask us questions like, oh, mommy, what does you and daddy do? What is your role in my life? Like that kind of things. And we have a lot of discussions like that. And then we realized that the books that we buy for her, whether it's Peter Rabbit lah or like Peter and Jane lah, all these books, they don't really touch a lot on relationships or even value-based books. So my husband, Adrian, wrote the book. He was inspired by what my daughter asked, and then he wrote the book, and then I produced it, and then we basically just published it. And I had to learn how to publish a book. But I never published a book, in my life. How do we get the ISBN number? How do we put it up? How do we find a printer? And then cover or soft cover, things like that. I had to learn from scratch, and then I realized that was very fun for me because product development was never something that I did in shop, right, as a marketing head. So that encouraged me to, try and learn. And as I grew with Nurts, I also grew personally. So it's very nice to see people appreciating the product after that, right? People buy the book and they're like, oh, we're so glad that you produced this book. And then my kids, I hear stories from our customers like, oh, my son's favorite book. Every night he will ask me to read it for him. And when we hear that motivates me. Yeah, and it's like priceless. Like people tell you that, hey, this book, my kid really likes it, and every night he asks me to read him that book. And it's something that I cannot really explain, but sharing the kind of stories from a lot of parents, not just one or two, but a lot of them actually tell us that. So that helped motivate me also to create more tools to help households like that. And it wasn't tough because I guess for me and my husband, we are going through that ourselves, right? We've got young toddlers, and so we are like learning at the same time, looking at areas where we feel there are gaps. Then we start creating tools that we use ourselves, and then we share it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I really love how you and your husband, Adrian, seem to be kind of partners in, obviously not just parenting, but even in this business, even though he's not, if I'm not wrong, he's not officially in the business. He has his own job. But he's so integral to it. And I'm sure he's played a very important part in just your whole career growth and process. Is there anything that you want to highlight about the role that he played in your process of doing all these many different things at the same time, wanting to have kids and, telling you to maybe slow down a little bit, or, like, hey, I think you should change something, change job, whatever.
10 minutes will be enough. But to summarize, I think having a very supportive partner is very, very important, especially being, the type of person that I am, having the kind of career that I have. But I guess timing is also everything, right? Because when I was very focused on my career, he was also very focused in his career. And we were both very driven, right? And then we became parents, and we both knew what kind of parents we wanted to be. We wanted to be very involved, spending a lot of time with our kids and being part of that childhood And so there's going to be give and take. Sometimes, of course, when it came to career, then, for me, it was about making a choice, right? Like I shared earlier. And so he has given me advice as well. Like, I think it's time to step back a little bit if this is what you want. And I guess having that sounding board or even having that conversation really does help. And then every time I have random ideas that pop up, I'm like, oh, what do you think about this? What do you think about that, right? Honestly, some days I can see that he's very tired as well. I was like, oh, he's got a long day already. And then he's like, oh my God, are we talking about work? And I'm like, yeah, I know, because that's something that I'm building, right? But I guess at the same time, although it's not officially,
It's your fourth baby. It's your fourth baby, right?
in a way, he's not officially part of the business, but we kind of did start the business together because he came up with the idea of the card game. He came up with the idea of the book. And for me, I'm the one executing it, right? I brought it to life in that sense. And I'm the one marketing it and building it, right? And so I guess he also feels very involved in the business. And whenever I have any ideas or new tools that I want to build or new ideas for the platform or partnership, etc., most of the time, of course, I decide and then I go with it, and then I will share it with him and then get his input as well, because I value that input. I know there are times where I self-doubt as well, like, should I go back to working full-time again, or do I continue doing this? Of course, building your own business from scratch is not easy, right? So having my partner telling me when to pivot or when to take a break or chill a bit, I think that helps me as well. Then, of course, for me, I also do try to be more self-aware, right? And try to be more open to listen to feedback and have the discussion. Communication is very important. We have a lot of all these conversations about the business, about Nurts, about what I want as a mom or what I want for myself. And then him sharing his...
Curious about that. Yeah, these talks, are they organic, or do you all actually schedule in time?
Very much organic. Very rarely do I schedule talks with my husband. I guess for us, the only time we have is maybe after the kids go to bed, so that's that find time to ourselves and we're like, okay, we spend time together. And then sometimes, although I don't want to talk about work, but sometimes work just gets in the way and I'm talking about this. And I guess sometimes good things come out of it because we will come up with some new ideas about new products, new tools, or new things that we can go hard about and try. And it just happens just like that. Yeah. And then for me, it's about making it happen, and I have that drive to make it happen. So that kind of works when you're starting a new business. It's also relies very heavily on him because then a lot more load will go on him, right? In terms of like the day-to-day, the household, expenses, etc. and all that, especially when I'm starting a new business. Yeah. And for him, he has seen many sides of me, right? Because we have been married since 2014. So it's been almost 10 years. So he has seen, the party wild side to the career woman, to becoming a mom. And I guess that really shaped me and our relationship as well.
I want to extend, this reflection mode a little bit. Do you, Rachel, have any thoughts about how you have done things differently? Go back in time.
I would have wanted to start Nurts earlier if I could go back in time. I feel I would say, it's very different from working for people versus building something that you really believe in. Like, I guess sharing stories from my community or buyers and all that, sharing about how we've impacted their kids' relationship with them, having their favorite bedtime story, etc. And all that really brings out like pure happiness, And I used to feel that a lot when I was working with even Shopee or Oxford. But ultimately, that's not your own company, right? So the feeling is very different. I also learned a lot from my past experience. And I guess all that has prepared me, right? Working in a different industry has prepared me to run my own thing. So no regrets.
Great. Yeah, I'm sure, all the paths that you've taken kind of culminates to where you are today and all the lessons you built off that, right? And I'm sure having 3 kids, it gives you also maybe more appreciation for, just the whole juggle that it takes, and maybe even more invested in like building this as something that, your kids can like look and feel proud of, right?
We had a partnership with the school one day, and then I was driving in the basement, and then my kid was like, "There, mommy, the parents' promise book, there." Then I'm like, "Where?" And then they could recognize the book. The school had a basement office where they had a showcase of the products, and then the books and the games and all that were there. So I was driving, right? And then the kids saw it. And then, mind you, they're like 3 years old, right? 4 years old. And they're like pointing and calling. I guess these are like little proud moments that I had.
Yeah.
I guess as they grow up, they would realize more and more. And then they could say, oh, that I have a book about me, right? Or I have a book written from our experience as a childhood. And I guess that would be quite a priceless memory.
Yeah, for sure. That's so great. Well, okay, Rachel, as we start to wind down this conversation, which has been such a encouraging and really, I think, like hopeful, conversation about how we can do different things and we shouldn't worry about what the worst could happen, because actually it's not really bad. I would like you to share just one thing that you would like listeners to take away from your story.
I guess one thing, if you think it, just do it, like Nike, right? Ultimately, it's don't be afraid to try. Yeah, don't be afraid to try. And just like motherhood, right? Everything as a new mom, everything is new. Just try, right? And then we're not so afraid anymore because we have gone through it. That's all part of learning and growing. So one thing, I guess, from my experience as a mom or entrepreneur or marketer is that don't be afraid to try. Like, what's the worst that can happen? And then if you don't try, would you regret it, right? Like 10 years down the road. I guess that kind of mindset is something that I would encourage people to have.
Wonderful. All right. And if listeners want to connect with you, what are some big areas you love talking about and learning about?
So I'm on LinkedIn. If they can connect with me, they can reach out to me anytime. And of course, the Nurts, I personally manage the Nurts account. What do I talk about or what do I enjoy learning about? Almost everything, like the industry, e-commerce, marketing, even boot camps. So I've had schools who reached out asking if I could do a boot camp for the student. I love all these opportunities and I like talking a lot about growth, even new marketing strategies, new ideas, right? And not necessarily only for e-commerce per se, but if you have a different industry or you're from a different industry, I've met lawyers even, right, who ask me, how do I change my career, etc. So it's very interesting to have all these different people from all walks of life, and I'm learning.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rachel. Thank you for your time and sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thank you for listening to Make It Work, where we uncover inspiring stories of modern working mamas in Asia who have redefined their careers whilst putting family first. Please help others to discover the show by leaving a review and rating on wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to follow us on our socials, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Meanwhile, here's to you, making it work.